What's up, guys? Mark back here with yet another video, and on today's morning jolt, grab your coffee. We're going to be talking a little bit about the new #1 in full frame sales in the United States. Welcome back to the Morning Jolt, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Puckett. How you doing? So, as some of you may or may not know, this is a talking head show about, random stuff that I happen to find in the mornings whilst drinking my coffee. The thing I want to talk about today is that Sony is now the #1 in full frame camera sales in the United States. I can remember just a few short years ago where everyone was there were a few of us that happened to pick up a few of the earlier Sonys, and we were quite impressed with its feature set and its capabilities. And then all of a sudden, we started talking about them. We started putting up, videos and reviews and image samples and all this other kind of stuff onto the internet. And then all the people that had always used DSLRs, had always been in the Canon and Nikon camp or whatever, I mean, we just got thrashed every single day. Like, literally every single day, there was somebody going, "You're a moron. You're a dumbass. That's not a real camera. That can't take real pictures. That's a toy." All that kind of stuff. So we got it constantly. We were told over and over and over again, "Hey, you're being paid. You're getting money. You're getting a script from Sony, and you're shilling is basically what you're doing." But even though all of those things were completely false, every last one of them, everything was completely false, we still drudged forward. We've still moved on, and here we are just a few short years later. Maybe 3.5 years since I made my first Sony video. Actually, it's about 3 years and 8 months or so. And here we are. Sony has now overtaken all other camera manufacturers by an astronomical amount when it comes to both sales and money generated, profit. So I find that very interesting. Now, I think that a lot of people have many different opinions about why that happened. In all honesty, Sony should have never been able to have accomplished this in any way, shape, or form. Like, this was a feat of superhumanism or something. But for however they managed to get here, here we are. But I do want to explore why I think, in my opinion, and how Sony cameras have managed to find their way into my setup. So the first thing I want to say about Sony is that they are not pretty cameras. There's nothing sexy about them. There's nothing beautiful about them. They're very much like every other camera except for a few. They just don't look that good. Most people buy cameras, especially high-end full-frame cameras, because they have some sort of photography job. They are a wedding photographer, they're a portrait photographer, they do corporate events, they photograph lots of different stuff that requires them to crank out a lot of images and do it well, right? That is the main reason people buy these tools. Not because they're cute, not because they're pretty, but because they've got shit to do. But it is much smaller, and all of them have been much smaller than the traditional DSLRs. Even the smallest of DSLRs are still significantly bigger than most of the mirrorless full-frame cameras. And I think that if people had listened, these big camera companies, had listened 3 or 4 years ago, this wouldn't be coming as a surprise. Sony would not be raking in this amount of money. It would not be overtaking full-frame camera sales in the market right now had they just listened to what we were saying. When you're that big, you get complacent. You get comfortable. You have no reason to innovate, to change anything. If what's working is working, even if there is some crazy little Sony kid over here in the corner making a bunch of noise, making a bunch of racket, just ignore that guy. But now we have the two big major camera companies 4 years ago. Now they're going to try and play catch up. They're going to try and release a full-frame mirrorless camera. I don't know how well they're going to do. Like I've said in past videos, I hope they do awesome. But in my opinion, Sony has brought the pain in just about every single way. While it's not a looker, it is much smaller and significantly lighter than most other professional DSLRs in almost every way. It does shave some weight off the body, but once you start looking into most of Sony's recent full frame glass. I mean, the glass has not changed much, so and that glass is very heavy. So by the time you compare lens to lens, you're not really losing much, but when it comes to body, you're losing quite a bit. So any amount of weight, any amount of stress, any amount of bulk that you can remove from your bag, from your shoulder, from your neck, I mean, if you're carrying that thing around all day, even the slightest bit of relief is worth it. But there were a few key things for me that helped Sony find its way into my bag. The number one thing was size and weight. I mean, it's significantly smaller and lighter. And even though I am more of an APS-C shooter, even though I was full frame before I bought my Sony, there was enough buzz around these cameras that I was willing to take a chance and pick one up. And when I did, I was blown away, absolutely astonished at not only its size, weight, portability, all that kind of stuff, but its performance level. Its performance to size ratio was off the charts. Another thing that was extremely appealing was the fact that they were packing technology into these cameras, whereas most of them, they were just, they were getting the job done, but there wasn't anything really new or innovative, like, the eye autofocus. That is very important to a lot of people. I don't know why people always go, you don't need autofocus, no one needs autofocus, blah, blah, blah. But it helps you move faster. It helps you get that shot faster, especially the eye autofocus. That is just absolutely revolutionary. Being able to take the shots of the subjects and know that it's going to lock onto an eyeball, which is the one thing, if you have people in the scene, that is the one thing that you want to have in focus, unless you're doing some sort of creative shot. And in that case, all the rules are out the window anyway. And last but not least, the reason why Sony made it into my bag was the EVF. That was the first time that I had ever picked up a camera that had an electronic viewfinder. And as soon as I began to use it, I knew right then, right there, that was the future, and I wanted to be a part of it. I knew that being able to see exactly what your shot is going to look like and have it update in real time as you adjust the settings. I mean, it sounds commonplace now, but 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when everyone was just first picking these things up, everyone just thought it was stupid. Like, no one even understood, like, how that could be a thing. But being able to have a little TV inside of your viewfinder and knowing exactly not only what the exposure is going to be, because most of the DSLRs have an exposure meter on the inside, but you would actually know what the photograph was going to look like. You would know, how's the color, how's the contrast, you would know everything. And you would be able to apply effects and change settings in real time and get immediate feedback. Like I said, it doesn't sound like much now, but 4 or 5 years ago, that was the tits. It was the one thing. I could be wrong, but I think that was the one thing that started to really set a fire under a lot of other people's rear ends, because you didn't have to guess anymore. You didn't have to pixel peep. Or not pixel peep, you didn't have to chimp. You didn't have to take a shot, check your histogram, and make sure that you did everything right and all that kind of stuff. You didn't have to zoom in, make sure that everything was going the way it was supposed to. You could see it before you even push the shutter button. So that brings us full circle. Sony now is selling every 4 out of 10 full-frame mirrorless cameras in the United States right now. Sony has currently saw a 78% growth in the camera market just for this year alone. All the other camera companies, all of them combined, 0. Now, that says more to me than anything else, because people in a market economy, they vote with their dollars. And when you see one company out of all the rest of them excelling and accelerating that fast, they're onto something. So now, and only now, have more and more companies started to pick up on this trend, and now they're going to try and play catch up. I don't know if it's ever going to be able to manifest itself into any real profit for them. I mean, I don't wish bad on any of them. Sometimes you just know. You know what's going to happen. And I've said this many, many times before. Sony was on the cusp, and they knew it. They knew that DSLRs were going to be a thing of the past. I don't know how long that's going to take. I really do hope that it doesn't take nearly as long as it took for film to move into digital and wet plates and all that. Technology used to move really slow, but now word of mouth manufacturing, you can literally pump out a new plant in a brand new country with a brand new workforce in a couple of minutes. And with Sony having 4 total full frame mirrorless cameras, one for sports, one for everyday use, one for high-end resolution, and the other one for video, like, they've got the market covered. They saw each segment of the market and catered. And that is what as a consumer. That's what we want. We don't want to be dictated to by the likes of Nikon and Canon like they used to. They were just like, okay, here's what you get, and in 2 years we'll release something else, and you just go ahead and trade that camera in, and you buy yourself a new camera. None of us like that. None of us really appreciated it, and the updates weren't all that great anyway. But Sony catered, and we want to be catered to. We're paying you thousands of dollars. We're the boss. You do what we say, you give us what we want, and you do it now if you want our money. Otherwise, we leave and go somewhere else. So that's all I've got for you all today. I hope you all enjoyed it, and please tell me if you own a Sony camera, or if you're thinking about picking one up, what brought you to the Sony family, or what's enticing you to finally drop your DSLR or other brand of mirrorless camera and head on over there. I'd like to know. At any rate, thanks so much for stopping here at The Morning Jolt, and I will see you guys again on the next one. Peace.